Hello, and welcome to today's story. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more. The story you're about to hear is based on accounts and rumors. Its full truth can't be confirmed. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive right in. I don't have a good reason for telling this other than I can't carry it alone anymore. People who don't live this far out think country dark is the same as city dark, just with fewer streetlights. It isn't. Out here, dark is a place. It has weight and seams and sounds you only hear when you're 2 miles from the nearest gas station, and your neighbor is a half-mile of ditch and field away. We rent a small farmhouse on a sloping bit of land that used to be soy. The house is nothing special. 2 bedrooms, a sagging porch, a wind that knows every gap in the windows. It's cheap because it's isolated, and we took it because cheap beats everything when the math doesn't work. Rachel and I make ends meet by braiding our hours around each other. I take nights at the warehouse. She does mornings at the diner. We cross in the kitchen like 2 trains that share a track for a second and keep going. The first night I was coming home from a double. It was a Tuesday, late winter, kind of cold that feels personal. The gas station at the county line is always open, a rectangle of buzzing light floating in a sea of black. I pulled in because my eyes were going glassy, and the last 8 miles to the farmhouse tend to slip when I'm tired. I went in, grabbed an energy drink and a pack of gum, and took my time paying because there's a lull inside fluorescent hum that feels like safety. When I came back out, they were standing just beyond the pool of light, a boy and a girl, 10, maybe 11, side by side, facing me, still as fence posts. At first, I thought they had to be with someone inside, and I'd walked past without noticing, but the lot was empty except for my truck and a stray minivan, huddled by the air pump. "Can we get a ride?" the boy asked. His voice was wrong. Not scary wrong, just off, flat, careful, like he was reading aloud for the first time and didn't want to mess up. The girl said, "We need to go home. It's not far." Same voice, same cadence. If I'd closed my eyes, I might have thought I was hearing an echo. I stopped at the car door with the handle in my hand. "Where do you live?" The boy said, "Close." The girl said, "We can't come in unless you let us." I'm not a coward. I've pulled strangers out of ditches with the truck more times than I can count. I've given rides to men whose breath watched the whole cab. But something prickled under my jacket, and I wanted to be in the truck, with the doors shut, more than I wanted to breathe. "I'm sorry," I said, "I can't tonight." I made my voice soft and kept my smile small. Like you do when you're trying not to spook a dog. The boy stepped forward into the light, and I saw his eyes. Black, not dark brown, not pupils blown wide from night. Black from lid to lid, like someone had poured ink into 2 hollowed-out shells. No whites, no iris, just glossy, depthless black. The drink thudded against my thigh where I was holding it. My mouth said, "I'm sorry," a second time. My hand said, "Get in," and I did. The girl's face tipped up, curious, and her eyes were the same. For half a second, our stares met, and a pressure crouched behind my forehead, as if someone had put a thumb there and started to push. I started the truck. I didn't slam the door or peel out. I nodded to them like a parent leaving and backed away like I had all the time in the world. They didn't step toward me. They didn't run after the truck. They stood still perfectly, like they'd been painted there. When I looked in the rear view as I pulled back onto County 9, the boy's head turned with me, smooth as a weather vane. I told myself it was a trick of light. I told myself I was overtired. I told myself a story I could drive home inside of. On the way back, the radio filled with static for exactly the stretch between the Foster silo and the creek bridge. The dash clock flickered and reset to 12:00 for 3 miles. When the station came back, it was in the middle of a weather report for a town 2 counties east. The voice said, "Keep your doors shut," and then went on about lake effect snow that never made it to us. Rachel was asleep when I came in. She leaves the porch light on until I'm in the door, then she turns it off from bed with the pull chain because the switch by the door never worked and we've learned to live around broken things. Our dog, Scout, lifted his head from his bed and thumped his tail once against the floorboards to let me know he'd seen me. I stood in the kitchen with the drink unopened and the open part of the night clinging to me like something wet you can't wipe off. In the morning, I told Rachel, "Saw 2 kids at the station last night, weird ones, asked for a ride." She poured coffee and yawned, all diner hair and soft socks. Parents let kids run loose like that anymore? They weren't, I don't know. I stopped, opened my mouth, closed it. Saying their eyes were black feels like telling someone you were abducted by light. It's an invitation to laughter you don't want pointed at you. They gave me a bad feeling. She kissed my cheek. "Everything gives you a bad feeling at midnight," she said. "You're like a cat. You know how he stares at the corner for 5 minutes like ghosts are there? That's you with gas stations. Stay awake behind the wheel. That's all that matters." I let it go. I wanted to let it go. We needed normal more than we needed me being strange. 2 nights later, I was out locking the shed when Scout lifted his head and made a sound I'd never heard from him. Not a bark, not a growl. Something low and thin that made the hair on my arms stand up. I turned with the cheap padlock in my hand and saw the boy and the girl not 20 yards from the porch, standing where the light falls apart into field. "Hey," I said, pushing the word out like you push a wheelbarrow that's too full. "You can't be out here." They didn't move. They didn't look at each other. They said, together, "Let us in." The phrase caught in the air between us like a moth and beat its wings against its own echo. A wind that didn't exist lifted my hair. The pressure put its thumb behind my eyes and pressed gently. This time, something in me that wasn't words stood up and took a step back. Rachel opened the screen door. "Who are you talking to?" she said. I turned to her and the moment broke its neck. When I looked back, there was nothing at the edge of the yard but our old for sale sign lying down in the weeds, and a plastic bag stuck in a dead bush that moved like a thing trying to breathe. "Strays," I said. "Thought I saw." "Never mind." She came down the steps and squinted into the dark. "You're going to pumpkin yourself right into a heart attack if you keep doing this," she said softly. "Come inside." I didn't say anything about the words I'd heard. I didn't say anything about the black eyes. I didn't say anything at all. The next night, around 2:10, the doorbell rang. I say doorbell, but what I mean is the little battery puck. We stuck up because the real bell rusted to death in 2008. It's quiet. It ding-dongs with apology, like a hotel that doesn't want to bother anyone. It ding-donged at 2:10 and set Scout whining and sent me straight up in bed, like I'd been pulled. Rachel cracked an eye. "Don't," she said. "What if it's someone who needs—" "Then they can come at 10 a.m. or go to the neighbor who owns guns," she said, flipping the blanket over her head. I went to the window first because I've learned that doors eat fools. On the porch stood the boy and the girl side by side, hands clasped in front of them like they were at church, their faces tipped to the door. Their eyes were holes in paper. When the porch light clicked on because the wind was moving the motion sensor like a hand, they didn't flinch. "Let us in," they said, no shouting. They didn't need to. The words were the right size to get in between the boards of the door and under my toenails. I told my body to back away, and it didn't. The pressure in my forehead found a knob and turned it a 1/4 inch. Something behind my stomach reached for the deadbolt, slow. My hand stopped an inch from the brass and hovered, trembling. Back in the living room, Scout was making that thin sound in his throat that I hated already. In the bedroom, Rachel lifted her head. "I'm calling the sheriff," she said loudly, more for whoever was on the porch than for me. "Let us in," the children said. The boy's head tilted like a bird's. I took a step back. The pressure increased, sweet as hunger. I heard Rachel on the phone. "We have trespassers. Kids. I think kids. Yes, black hair. I said I think, yes, now. We're out on, yes, I'll keep the door." She stopped. Then, "No, that's not funny. Don't, hello?" The line went dead. Our service out here is held together with wishful thinking and tin, but that was the slamming of a door, not a slow fade. The children stared at the door like they could see through wood. Then, at the exact same time, both of their heads turned toward the window where I was hiding like a child. The boy smiled. It didn't reach anything but his teeth. "Please," he said. I stepped backward, tripped on the rug, grabbed the wall hard enough to feel paint under my fingernails, and then the ding-dong sounded again. This part is the part people think is an exaggeration. The doorbell rang in a pattern. Not ding-dong, ding-dong. It rang 3 times, paused, rang twice, paused, rang once, like someone knocking their knuckles against a door in a code people use in movies to prove they're trustworthy. It sounded like an answer to a question I didn't know I'd asked. They were gone. When the sheriff came, patrol car lights painted our cedar trees blue and red, and the deputy wrote nothing in a notebook because the law knows how to write invisibility when it has to. 2 nights later, the sheriff himself came by and leaned on the porch rail and told us about stray teens and TikTok challenges and how an old farmhouse can make your eyes tell your brain things that aren't strictly true. "Install cameras," he said finally, because he needed to leave us with an instruction that sounded like safety. "Motion activated. You'll sleep better knowing." We installed cameras, cheap ones, because of course. One looking down the driveway, one on the porch, pointing at the door, one inside, pointed at the hallway because Rachel said, "If you're going to be paranoid, at least do it right." The footage is boring right up until it isn't. The first time the porch cam caught anything, it was 3 a.m. in fog. Not cinematic fog, everyday rural fog that sits in the dip between fields and makes your wrists cold. In the fog, 2 shapes, small, side by side. No faces because the camera lens is the wrong kind of eye for seeing in fog. They stood for 46 seconds without moving. The motion sensor saw no motion. It kept in the corner of the frame, that blank bit of screen, the way a mouth keeps a word it forgot to say. Rachel said kids, and I said kids, and the word stuck because it was a word we could live with. We started going to bed with a chair propped under the front doorknob. It wouldn't stop a determined man, but it made a noise when anyone tried the door, and noise beats nothing. I salted the thresholds one night because that's a thing you do when you stop being a person who laughs at salt. The next morning, there were small smudges in the lines, like fingers had been pressed there, and then wiped the evidence away with care. The phone started ringing late a week in. The first time I answered because that's what you do when someone rings your phone at 3 a.m. You assume death has happened somewhere, and it requires your voice to confirm it. There was static, not white noise, dirty noise, with the sense of a voice under it. Then my own voice came through, flattened and pulled thin like elastic. "Don't open the door," I whispered, except I was standing in the kitchen not whispering anything. "Please, don't let them in." "Who is this?" I said, which felt stupid and also correct. The line went dead. Call log, no number, no caller ID. Outgoing call, 3:08 a.m. to my number. Duration, 00:19. I put the phone down like its glass burned. Rachel patted in, hair stuck to one cheek. "Wrong number?" she said. I showed her the log. She looked at it for a long time. "That's a glitch." "Sure," I said, "a glitch." We slept with the lamp on. Scout slept in the doorway with his head on his paws and his eyes open. We woke to 3 small damp footprints on the inside of the back door. Children's feet, bare, turned inward like a pigeon-toed kid. No prints led up to the door from the outside. The ground outside was mud, a bruise of melted snow where we track our boots. Nothing. Inside, 3 prints and then nothing, as if something very careful had stepped where it knew we couldn't see. The knocks changed. Instead of the door, we heard tapping at the bedroom window. 2nd floor. We don't have a tree that reaches. We don't have anything that reaches. The tapping came from too high to be a person on the ground and too steady to be a branch. Tap, 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 pause, tap. The timing was good. You could set a metronome to it. Rachel got up, furious in a way that smelled like fear. She threw the curtain aside and the cold came in like a hand. Nothing. Just the black shape of the yard and the suggestion of our truck like a sleeping animal. She thumbed the latch to open the window, and I grabbed her wrist so hard I left bruises, and she turned and said my name in a voice that meant stop, and I did. We put flour out on the porch because we were out of salt. We sprinkled it lightly in an arc, the way you make a trap for Santa when you're 5 and eager. In the morning, the arc was broken in exactly 2 places by the suggestion of small heels and small toes. In between, nothing. You can call that a raccoon if it helps you. It didn't help me. On the 7th night of knocking, Rachel broke. It wasn't dramatic. It was a sigh. "This is nonsense," she said. "They're kids, scared kids. I'm opening the door." "Don't," I said, and the word came out like I'd swallowed the wrong way. "Don't you don't me," she said, and went to the door. The phone rang. The sound knifed the room. I snatched it because I knew. Screen ME. I didn't want to answer, so my hand answered for me. "Don't open the door," I told myself. My voice came through the speaker like it had been played on bad tape 3 times already. "Please, don't let them in. Don't let them in. Don't." The line cut. The lamp nearest the door flickered so hard the bulb popped, and the room went brown, and Rachel's face went washed out and still. Something cold crept under the door, under the chair leg, under my skin. The pressure that had been a thumb behind my forehead put its whole hand there and pressed. The back door opened. We didn't hear footsteps. We heard the absence of them, the way the house changes when someone else is in it, the way the air decides to share. They were in the entry to the kitchen side by side, their clothes dry, their hair not wine-messed, their faces attentive and all wrong. Up close, the blackness of their eyes wasn't flat. It had a shine like oil on a puddle. If you move in front of oil, your shape sheens in it. I saw myself stretched across their eyes like a bad reflection in a spoon. "Let us in," they said together, and the words didn't mean open the door. The words meant permit. The pain in my head was a belt tightening a notch. My eyes watered. Scout took a step forward, put himself between us and them, and bared his teeth in a way he never had at anything. The boy regarded him like a painting. The girl tipped her head and said, "Please." Rachel took a breath like she had to remember how. "You need to go," she said. Her voice shook and then steadied. "You need to go now." "We can't," the boy said, "until you let us." "I won't," she said. The belt tightened. I got to my knees because standing wasn't a thing I could hold together anymore. I reached for the bat by the door, and my hand ignored me because it had plans with the pain. The children took a step. The room got colder. The girl's mouth tried on a smile and got the shape wrong. The house listened to itself hold its breath. The phone rang again. Right there, 2 feet from my knee on the floor. I hit the green without seeing it because I knew what it was and because I'd found a religion I believed in, which was my own voice telling me how to live. "Don't," I said to me. "Don't open the door. Don't invite. Don't say yes. Don't say come in. Don't think it." The line crackled. They can't stay if you don't, I said. They can talk, they can knock, that's all. Rachel's eyes found mine. I saw the idea pass through her face like a fish breaking the surface. We hadn't said the words. We hadn't invited. We'd told them go. We'd told them no. We had not given the shape they needed. Leave, Rachel said. She said it quietly, but with the weight of the whole house behind it. Now. The children blinked at exactly the same moment, like they shared a set of eyelids. They pressed their hands together in the same place. The boy tilted his head, and for a second something like curiosity put a ripple through the oil. Let us in, they said again, and the belt tightened, and Rachel's knuckles went white on the doorframe, and Scout planted his feet. Leave, I said. The lights went out. We were blind. Dark returned to the house like it had been waiting outside in the yard, and someone finally opened the gate. Rachel grabbed my wrist, bones clacking, and I went to my feet by instinct and the map of our house in my muscles. We backed toward the stairs, Scout with us, his growl gone soft and terrified. I was aware in a sideways way of the smell of damp earth and cold iron. I was aware that the air pressed on my chest like a hand. Halfway up the stairs, the light over the sink flickered once and gave back a little vision. The children were still by the kitchen entrance, not closer, not farther. Just there, the black of their eyes throwing back a thumbnail of the room. I realized then I could see the porch light through the front window at the same time, and it was on, and the door was shut, and the chair was still under the knob. The world insisted on a contradiction and refused to explain itself. The phone buzzed in my pocket again. I didn't need to see the screen. They're inside, I whispered to myself through the speaker, because I had to say it to believe it. They're inside, and they aren't. Don't invite, don't. The voice broke into static and then into a thin, awful whine that wasn't any radio station I've ever heard. We spent the night in the bedroom with the dresser pushed against the door, and Scout, a narrow, trembling weight on my feet. I thought of the sheriff telling us to get cameras. I thought of flower lines and doorbells and salt. I thought of the two bare feet on the inside of the door and nothing leading to them. Every time my eyes closed, I saw the black shine in theirs reflecting my own face, small and distorted. At dawn, the house sighed like it had been holding something in. The heat kicked on with its familiar rattling cough. I eased the dresser back and opened the door an inch. The hallway was empty. The kitchen was a kitchen again, a room for coffee and the sound of the tap, a room that had never held anything else. The back door was shut, latched from the inside. The porch cam history had nothing between 1:58 and 4:12, just a glitch gap, as if someone had cut out a section of night with scissors and taken it with them. We left 2 weeks later, packed what we could and left the rest. Rachel didn't want to talk about why. She told anyone who asked that the well kept going bad and the drive to town was too much. When she said it enough times, I heard the truth settle into the lie and make a nest there. In the rental in town, the streetlight outside is orange and ugly and loud, and I have never loved a thing more. There are neighbors, there is traffic, there is a pizza place whose delivery guy knocks 3 times and then again because he's always cold. There are other lives touching ours in ways that ruin you for isolation. Every once in a while, the phone still rings at 3:08. It reads ME. I don't answer. I've heard everything I'm going to hear from myself. The logs show nothing. Sometimes there's an outgoing call to my number that lasts exactly 19 seconds while I sleep. And in the morning, the only message is static that sounds like wind across a field. And then a voice that could be mine or someone else's saying don't, and then failing to say what it is I am not supposed to do. Once, 2 weeks ago, I got home from picking up Rachel after a double and found a slip of paper under the mat at the door. It looked like a receipt, but the thermal ink had only one line on it. Let us in. I keep Scout's bed by the door anyway. He's older now, but he watches. Dogs know the shape of things that want to be allowed. Sometimes, very late, when the traffic thins and the apartment building settles and the radiators make their hollow little deaths, I think I hear 3 polite knocks from somewhere that isn't the door. I lie there and breathe as evenly as I can. I do not move. I do not say, "Come in." I do not think the shape of a welcome. It is surprising what your mind will do for you when you give it one simple rule and refuse to bend. It is surprising how long you can keep a thing outside if you never call it by its name and never, ever open the door. Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed putting this story together for you. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and share it with someone who's into this kind of stuff. See you next time.